Okay. Okay. Thanks so much, Abhincham Tiwari, for for your good presentation and response. Now, we have our second presenter, Mr. Anupam Chawdhury from Jadavpur University. His topic is critical discussion on Phaladatrtva of Isvara, and it is guided by Professor P. Ghoshal. So, I welcome Mr. Anupam Chawdhury of Jadavpur University and request him to present his paper on the critical discussion on Phaladatrtva of Isvara. Over to Anupam.
Am I audible?
It's audible, audible.
Okay. Om Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashakrito Vande Bhagavantu Punah Punah Mannatha Sri Jagannatha Madguru Sri Jagadguru Madatma Sarva Bhutatma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Good evening, everyone. I am here to present my paper titled The Critical Discourse on the Phaladatrtva of Isvara. And at the onset of my paper, I offer my humble prostrations at the lotus feet of my instructor, Professor Ghoshal. Now, this discussion is mainly based on a very general thing that is accepted all across all religions across the world, and that is known as karma vada, or the law of karma. We have a very general notion or the theory of causation, that every event in a particular time frame causes some other event in a later time frame. And if we extend this concept metaphysically, if we take this beyond births, across births, then that leads to karmavada. In what way? Let me speak about a particular birth first, then we'll speak about the concept across the births. For example, in a class of students, we may think of two groups particularly. A group that studies quite well, pays attention to the lectures, keeps no work pending, and the other group is just the opposite of that. And now at the end, we may see when the examination comes and the result is out, we'll see that both the groups have succumbed to different sorts of results. And what has caused their results? What has caused the difference in their results? It is said that their karma, their deeds have caused the difference. Now, it is commonly agreed that individuals succumb to their karma phala, but who bestows it upon them? Who bestows the karma phala on the individuals, on the individual sentient beings, on the individual karta? This is the bone of contention that lies over here in this discussion. The Purva Mivamsakas think of a potency called Apurva, and the Nayayikas think of something called Adrishta, and they consider those to be the Phalodata. In what way? It is usually considered that when a person performs any yajna, any fire sacrifice, for attaining swarga or heaven after death, now that attainment of heaven cannot occur as long as he is alive. That attainment will occur only after his physical body dies. So, and until the attainment of the result, the karma gets finished. Siddhanta Muktavali on Bhasha Parichheda says that karma is destroyed at the fifth moment of its origination. What are the five moments? Utpatti, Sthiti, Purva Samjoga Nash, Uttaradesh Samjoga, and Nash, and complete annihilation. So these five moments are gone, and the karma or the particular ritual that's completely annihilated when the person dies and attains swarga. So we cannot say particularly that karma bestows the phala on the individuals. Next comes the concept of the individual himself having some sort of control over the phala. And the Shruti Shastra, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, defies this fact completely. It has been said in Srimad Bhagavad Gita 2.47 that karmanya vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. The individuals have control over the karma or the deeds. It is the deeds which they can operate and not the results of it. And on the other hand, we have the Advaita Vedantins who think of Ishvara, who conceive Ishvara as the Phaladata of the individual. Now, why is there such difference in ratiocinations of different sampradayas? Mainly in the Shruti, in the totality of Shruti, at different places we find that both Ishvara and uh, Apurva or Adrishta, not Apurva or Adrishta directly, but Karma has been denoted as the Phalodata. In what way? We'll see that. Firstly, let's take a look at what Apurva is. Apurva, that Purva Mimamsakas think of, and the Adrishta, that the Nayayikas think of, is basically a potency that's generated after the karma is performed. After the deed is performed, that potency is generated. And that potency in turn leads to the attainment of the phala. This potency resides in the Atman of the doer, and it's said to get perished once the phala is attained by the individual. This is the very basic notion of Adrishta or Apurva. There are minute differences between the two, but they have been analyzed together in this paper. And this conception of Phaladatrtva in Adrishta or Apurva is refuted by the Advaitins with logic and with the help of Shrutivakyas too. What do the Advaitins say at first? The Advaitins might say that the individual's deeds vary greatly. My deeds are different from my friend's deeds, and his are different from others. So, in that way, since the deeds vary, we need some chetana or conscious being to bestow the phala on the individual. And achetana, apurva or adrishta cannot be thought of as the phaladata due to this variation in the obtained phala. This is the very first point. And secondly, it might be said that Shruti Vakyas, there are Shruti Vakyas which directly affirm the Phaladatrtva of Ishvara. What are they? Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 4.4.24 says that Savai Evaha Mahan Ajaha Atma Annadaha Vasudanaha. That Mahan Atman is the bestower of foods, of security, of everything that's basically needed in individual's life. So in that way, the Phaladatrtva is basically established in Ishvara by the Advaita Vedantins. But Purva Mimamsakas take a further step ahead in establishing the Phaladatrtva in Ishvara, in Adrishta or Apurva. In what way? We'll see that. Purva Mimamsakas say that Shruti itself denotes karma as the bestower of phala. In what way? Shruti says, Swarga kama jajeta, punyo by punyena kanmana bhavati papah papena. That means in order to attain Swarga, perform this particular fire sacrifice, or one becomes punyavana by doing virtuous deeds, and one becomes a papi by doing vicious deeds. So in this way, Shruti points directly towards karma to be the bestower of phala. But karma gets destroyed at the fifth moment, that we have already seen. So in what way can we maintain the authority of the Shruti Vakyas? For this purpose, they have thought of the potency that's generated by these karma, which reside in the Atman, called Apurva by the Mimamsakas and Adrishta by the Nayayikas, and that in turn bestows the phala on the individuals. Moreover, the Purva Mimamsakas go a further step ahead and show that you cannot establish the Phaladatrtva in Ishvara. What is the reason? Because Ishvara is considered to be Brahma Rupa. Ekarasha means unvariegated, it's unified, it's one. And one single cause cannot lead to various varied effects. individuals' deeds and their results vary. But if we consider one unvariegated Ishvara as the Phaladata, there comes an untenability. In what way? One single cause cannot lead to various effects. That might still get refuted by the Adventists, and with that fear, they say one more thing, that Ishvara would fall accused of some vices like partiality and pitilessness if he is considered to be the Phaladata. Moreover, the Purva Mimamsakas say that the Apurva might be considered as Achetana, but there is something called pravritti or sanskara or tendency, which makes it bestow the phala on the individuals. In what way? The Purva Mimamsakas give the example of a palm leaf mattress. Here in Bengal, we call it chatai. The palm leaf mattress, which has been kept rolled for very long time, once we open it, it gets rolled back to its previous position. Now that's sanskara or tendency to roll back. In the same way, it's the tendency of the apurva or adrishta to bestow the phala on the individual. This is the ratiocination of the Purva Mimamsakas. And what do the Advaitins say in final refutation? We'll see that over here. Yes, the Advaitins say that you are giving Shrutivakyas in support of karma as the bestower, and we have Shrutivakyas in support of Ishvara as the bestower. What are they? Kaushitaki Upanishad 3.8 says that Eshaha hi eva sadhu karma karayati tam yam ebh lokebh unnimnishate sa eva asadhu karma karayati tam yam ebh lokebh adhanimnishate. With the desire of lifting someone to the higher heavens, the Ishvara makes them do virtuous deeds, and with the desire of making someone go to the lower, I'll not say heavens, hells, to the Patala Lokaha or Naraka, the Ishvara makes them do vicious deeds. Not just that, even the Smriti Shastra, Bhagavad Gita, in the Bhagavad Gita 7.21 and 7.22, Sri Krishna very openly says that yo yo yang tanung bhaktah shraddhayarchi tumichhati tasya tasya chalang shraddhang tameva vidadhamaham. It's I who bestow the bhakti on every individual. I make them choose the path that they desire for. I make it possible for them. Not just that. Sataya shraddhaya yuktastasya radhanamihate labhate cha tataho kaman mayaiva vihitan hitan. Whatever they wish for in their life, be it food, be it security, be it bhakti, be it jnana, be it moksha, whatever, it's I who bestow it upon them. Sri Krishna says that. But particularly with the Shruti Vakyas, Advaitins would not stop, and they say that Ishvara, if considered to be the Phaladata, would not fall accused of devices like pitilessness and partiality. Why? Because when at the end of every kalpa, at the end of every creation, Ishvara creates this universe and the individuals according to their previous deeds. So the individual, what they obtain is basically is a result of what they have done. It's nothing up to the Ishvara. Moreover, if we consider Apurva as the Phaladata, there would be the first fallacy of Mahagaurava. Why? Because there are innumerable number of kartas, doers, and their various deeds and their various outcomes. So if we are to consider individual Apurva for them, that would surely lead to Mahagaurava, as infinite Apurvas cannot be considered for this logical sake. And secondly, there are certain karmas which do not have any particular time frame as to when the doer, the karta, would attain the result, would obtain the result. In that way, the apurva would seem to last very long, and there will be no time frame as to this much is the range of apurva. And considering apurva to last very long would lead to another fallacy. And the palm leaf mattress example given by the Purva Mimamsakas regarding the independent pravritti of the Achetana, that lacks logic. Advaitins directly say that it lacks logic. Why? because that palm leaf mattress also needs to be rolled by some Chetana Karta, and which will be opened in a later time, will roll back to its previous position. So that presupposes a Chetana Karta. And lastly speaking, Apurva is pretty obscure or aprasiddha among the folks. In mundane world we know what Adrishta is or what Apurva is. That's pretty obscure among us. We consider Ishvara as the we know Ishvara as the Phaladata very in a very mundane world. And lastly, with this undeniable logic, Advaitins established the Phaladatrtva in Ishvara. But what about the Shruti Vakyas which denote the Phaladatrtva of karma? The Advaitins, being Vedavadins, would not refute the Shruti Vakyas in any way whatsoever. They say that the Shruti Vakyas like Swarga Kama Jajeta and etc. are Arthavadas, are uttered for the sake of praising the particular ritual, for the sake of praise of the particular ritual. And with this logic, the Advaitins established the Phaladatrtva in Ishvara. And considering these arguments, we may say that uh, Adrishta, independent Adrishta or Apurva, seems to be incapable of bestowing the phala on individuals. And if we are to consider the Apurva or Adrishta to be the Phaladata, we must consider it to be propagated by any conscious being or Ishvara. And if we are to consider Ishvara the propagator of the Achetana, Apurva or Adrishta, it's better to conceive of the Phaladatrtva in Ishvara himself. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation. And these are the works that I have cited.
Okay, thanks so much, Mr. Anupam, for your very clear discussion on the Phaladatrtva of Isvara, and you have taken it as a reflection of Karma Bhada, and you have related it to the general theory of causation, that every event in a particular time frame causes some other events in the later time frames, leads to the theory of the karma. And you have also taken the reflection of a debate. I don't want to discuss it. And you have very clearly analyzed the concept of adrushta and apruba relating to the Phaladatrtva of Isvara. You have taken that how apurva is considered as Phaladata, and sometimes Isvara is taken as the Phaladata. And you have also discussed that how the spiritual karma, religious karma, and traditional karma, which does not yield result instantly, and different karmas yield different knowledge. And you have your entire discussion is a discussion on the Indian philosophical way of karmavada. And with this, may I request Dr. K. Omanan Rao to carry on the introductory session. Over to Dr. Rao.
Well, thank you, Dr. Maharana. It's a very nicely articulated presentation by Anupam. Very nicely done. Well, we have with us Ranjit Ghosh, sir. Well, sir, your observations. Dr. Ghosh, sir.
Hello. Am I audible?
Audible,
Yeah.
sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Rao. We must thank Mr. Anupam Chawdhury for his presentation, brief presentation, of course. But one thing that is bothering me is this, that the differentiation between Adrushta and Apurva. Because you see, Adrushta is propagated by the Nayayikas, whereas Apurva is propagated by the Mimamsakas and Vedantis. And Adrushta is associated with the pre-existence of action, whereas Apurva is linked with the post-existence of actions. Now, the thing is, is it not the fact that the things should have been regarding the Phaladata, the things should have been the other way around? because Nyayika is a realistic philosophy and Vedanta Mimamsa, they are propagating an idealistic philosophy. This is one question. And the other one is, can we not relate this with the Sadeha Mukti and Videha Mukti, which would you suggest for the Karmavadins? These two questions, I think, otherwise the presentation is very nice. Please try to answer this. Okay, thank you.
Yes, firstly speaking, the the Nayayikas think of Adrishta, and that Adrishta is existent even before any sort of deeds is performed. Yes, that's the concept of the Nayayikas. But the Adrishta has also got a function. Adrishta also functions as a potency which bestows the phala. Eliminating the previous characteristic of Adrishta, I have analyzed particularly this potency thing. The Apurva and Adrishta both are considered to be potencies which bestow the phala. I have tried to refute this thing from the perspective of the Advaita Vedantins. Firstly, and regarding the moksha of the Karmavadins, yes, after all, Sadeha Mukti or Videha Mukti, Jivan Mukti or Videha Mukti, whatever it's possible. Videha Mukti would be possible only after the whole of the Mula Vidya is annihilated. Without the annihilation of Mula Vidya, Videha Mukti is not possible. Even the Jivan Mukti yogi, the one who has attained the liberation while living, he would continue to see the differences. He might not get affected by it, but he will perceive the Veda in this world just due to something called avidya lesha. When the sun goes down the horizon in the western sky, there is diffuse sunlight in the air. Even after the mulavidya is also annihilated, there is some diffused sort of avidya thing, and that continues to function. That's called avidya lesha. So videha mukti is surely possible, but the whole of ignorance needs to be annihilated.
All right, thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ghosh and Anupam. Well, before moving to Kailash Das sir, may I request our admin Pramod Das sir to have his observations. Pramod Das sir, because you are working maybe in this area. Okay, maybe that would be useful. Okay. Okay. Well. Let us move to Kailash Das sir, please, sir. Your observations, and then we can take the questions that are there in the chat box.
Thank you, Mr. Anupam. For every this paper is referring to Indian philosophical traditions, and especially I have referred to the Vedic traditions, Vedanta tradition. And suppose we are a layman, I don't have a technical question. Can we discuss from that point of view that when someone asks when we'll get liberation to any ordinary person, and your answer is if after death, so what to do to get liberation? Now we should die. And how to answer such a question from this context, number one. Number two is that why we need this Adrishya and Apurva and Isvara, all these things, in order for the karma phala to be there. Why karma phala is according to this Jaina philosophy, it cannot give the fruits itself. Automatically the fruits will entitled to get without having the help of an Ishwar or this Adrishta or this potency. This potency can be interpreted as a law that which automatically gives its results irrespective of any Ishwar existing or non-existing. Should we dispense with an Ishwar as per Jainism? Can you reflect over it?
Yes.
But your paper is very nice. I am not asking a technical question. Don't be serious about this technique.
Yeah, sure. Firstly, regarding what if someone asks what should you do in order to get moksha and we should die? That's the first question. Answer. In mundane world, in very our level of transactional world, moksha is or liberation, mukti, whatever it is, it's very wrongly interpreted. It's considered to be swargalabha. any individual in the transactional world would mean would do some good deeds in this world in order to attain some good results in afterlife. Moksha is not afterlife or before life. Moksha is getting free from this, because if we have swarga after this life and our bhoga gets ended there, we'll be again thrown back into the sky and we have to descend to this place. This is the first thing. Moksha in this sense of videha mukti and janma mrityu chakra chinna, and all these concepts are pretty obscure among individuals. And secondly, speaking about why do we need to conceive of Ishvara, why can't we think of individuals attaining karma phala just like that, just for the sake of karma, or just as a law that bestows the phala? Yes, speaking about the law, let's speak any of the law that's currently prevalent in the country. Now, that law has also to be propagated by any conscious being. Any law cannot be propagated without any conscious being to make it work. Let's take any law, for example, we must not stand on the footboard of the railway, of the train. That's a law according to the Indian Railway Act of 1989. So there must be some individual conscious being who has made this law. This law just cannot pop up on itself. Therefore, for considering any law to be at work, we must consider a Chetana lawmaker behind the scene.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Das. Well, before moving to Dr. Anup Rai, well, a beautiful question that I can see in the chat box by Abhin Sham Tiwari. Well, he says, how to define Ishvara here? Well, taking from what, well, Abhin Sham, would you like to ask personally? Would you like to ask, or should I ask on your behalf?
Yes, sir, you can ask from my behalf, sir.
Okay. So first of all, taking from what Dr. Das said of bringing in Iswara here, the necessity of Iswara here. So in the similar light, will even Abhin Sham finds a problem. Say, how do you define Ishvara here? Okay, how do you take him? So first of all, the problem hangs in there. Now, then again says, if at all you say Ishvara is the guide of everything that we do, then he says there are various evidences where to take that karma and karma phala, the connection is already there without any guide being there. So how to take these two issues? First of all, how do you define Ishvara here in this context? Number two, is Ishvara is so necessary as a guiding principle? Okay. Anupam.
Yes. Firstly speaking, what's the definition of Ishvara taken here? Ishvara is particularly taken to be, as I mentioned in my paper, Ishvara is taken to be Brahma Rupa, Ekarasa, unvariegated, unified, and all these things. Ishvara is nothing other than Saguna Brahman. It is the Brahman. But when the reflected, this thing of Ajnana or Avidya comes, this becomes, if this is the Brahman and this is the reflector, on the presence of the reflector, this Brahman becomes Ishvara, and this reflection becomes Jiva. That's Ishvara in front of the reflector of Ajnana or Avidya. And secondly, speaking about the second question, Ishvara need not be considered as a guiding principle. Individuals' rationality is enough to guide them. I am not denying that in any way. But speaking about this sequence, karma and accordingly karma phala. If I have done some good thing, I obtain some good thing. If I have studied well, I secure good marks. If I have not studied well, I fail in the examination. This sort of sequence has been maintained by some sort of law, and that law needs to be propagated by any Chetana or conscious lawmaker. That's the point.
Well, one thing that comes to my mind, when we say, as you say, we do a good act and we think of a good result. Okay, so a problem hangs in there. We carry on a very very good act, the best act ever possible. But the results are very confusing, the results are very negative, and so it is there. Why, in spite of the best of the efforts, the results are somewhat different. They are not as expected. As you say, good deeds, good results. That is not the equation coming out. So it is there, this Karmavada principle somehow comes into play, and there the role of Ishvara comes into play, because sometime or the other, the good deeds, they come back in some other form. They are not explicit at the present, as Abhinsham says, that you have an act and you find the result. That is not happening every time. Sometimes that link is not there, or many of the times the link is not there, but sometimes the input is not there. You feel the input is not there, but there is an output. So it is there. Who gives the justice to all this? So Iswara at the background is somehow, we feel a necessity of a Iswara at the background to do the justices to the deeds and the Kanvafala. Okay, thank you. Well,
Yes,
I
this
think
is the very basic thing, basic complaint of every individual, that I have not done anything bad in my life, and yet why am I attaining such bad results in my life? Why am I suffering a lot? What did I do? This is the very common complaint among most of our lives. And here comes the answer of the Advaitins. Say that, okay, you have got your storehouse from your last birth, and that's what is giving you phala now, because the body that I have attained in this birth is a result of the karma of the previous birth, and what I am doing here will produce accordingly body in the next birth. That's it.
well, let us move to Dr. Anup Rai and then move to Dr. Das. Yes, Dr.
Thank
Anup
you,
Rai.
Om. Enough discussion has been made, but I must congratulate Anupam that I liked the content of your presentation as well as the style of your presentation. I liked the style of presentation very much. Even the way you answered the questions put by our esteemed judges, friends, and others, you have answered very correctly. Correctly, maybe it's a wrong word, but you have answered very properly and in a good way. I like your style, and I hope you have a bright future ahead. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Roy. Well, thank you very much for your remarks. Well, over to promote us. Well,
Thank you.
we have again with us, I think Jayanti madam is there. She is an expert in this area. We should love to have some questions from her after Professor Pramod Das sir completes his version.
Thank you, sir. The speaker spoke like a speaker, so that is a great thing. I also loved his style of speaking, and he's very convinced. One very simple question I shall ask: when we are discussing about Karmavada, referring to Adrishta, Apurva, Ishvara as Karma Phaladata, this seems to be the deterministic factor. But where is the scope of free will? Because without free will, without the exercise of free will, we can't prosper, we can't have any transformation. We claim that Aham Brahmasmi, I am that Brahman. So who is that I who is involved in action, any action? If there is influence of Adrushta, influence of Apurva, interference of Ishvara, then where is the scope for free will? I know you know the answer, but please tell, please, please share with us. Thank you.
Yes. Regarding free will, there are basically two concepts that I have heard from my professors, from my teachers. One is a film script concept. Another one, one thing is basically the script is given and you act accordingly. You have been given the your role. You have been made understood, that this is your role and this is your dialogue. Now it's up to you to do it. And the second thing is film strip model. The film is already recorded. It is just being played. It is just being projected. There are basically two theories regarding that. And regarding this film film strip model, where it's already recorded, pre-recorded, the thing is just being projected or played, there's no scope of free will. There is seriously no scope of free will. And yes, if we consider this to be like a film script model, we are being given the thing, that's your role and that's your dialogue. Now it's up to you to act in whatever way you want. There is a scope of free will. And if we are to consider Buddha's Pratitya Samutpada Tattva, and Srimad Bhagavad Gita also at places speaks about psychological determinism. So I really doubt how far we are free.
Mr. Anupam ji, there is a paradox. If you are not free, then God is not good, because if God is really good, he should feel happy that the best creation, that is human being, must have free will. And if you are free, then divine interference is meaningless, because you are free, you have your rationality, you can change the direction of the film script. Many times it happens when Nana Patekar, Amitabh Bachchan, they make their own dialogue and they change the direction of the director. They are the superstars. So if you act like a superstar, like a free thinker, then that will go against the divine interference in your interpretation as you interpret Ishvara. Okay. Secondly, you say that in Advaita Vedanta, Ishvara is mithya. Ishvara is mithya means it is the reflection. It is not the truth.
It's not the reflection. It is the original when the reflector comes in front.
No, there is no Ishvara at all. If you know Brahman, then there is no question of Ishvara. Ishvara comes only when you are in ignorance. Okay. So in that situation, how can he guide our action? Okay, this question, we will leave this question. The first one is, if you are free, then divine interference is meaningless. If you are not free, then God is not good. We can discuss that in the case of the problem of evil. If evil exists, then God is not good. Okay. So my question is, being a human being, should we rely on our free will, or we should leave everything on Adrushta, Apruva and Ishvara? That is the basic question. Thank you.
Basically, what's being said that individuals succumb to their deeds and Ishvara creates individuals at the beginning of every kalpa according to their own karma in the previous kalpa. So there is a scope of free will. Without the scope of free will, there would come no discussion of ethics. Ethics, this whole thing of ethics would not come into context if there had been nothing called free will. But the question comes, how far are we free? Leave about Apurva, Ishvara, Adrishta, everything. Speaking from Bhagavad Gita, speaking about psychological determinism, even our psychology, what we think, what I am, for example, Professor Das has asked a question, and maybe next is Professor Ghosh, and he will ask a question, and what will I think regarding that? Even is that's determined. In what way? Gita says that Sangat Sanjayate Kama, Kamat Krudho Vijayate, Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha, Sammohat Sriti Vibhrama, Sriti Bhrangshat Buddhinasho, Buddhinashat Pranashyati. In that way, even we are psychologically determined. There comes the problem of free will. Without free will, there can be no ethics. There can be no discussion of ethics. But even our minute psychological states are determined. States seem to be determined. So in that context, goes in that.
No, no. One
Sure,
thing.
one thing. Well,
Probably,
yes,
Anupam, you are not bringing the differentiation between Ishvara and Brahman. Just you have related the issue because in the context of Adrushta, Ishvara has been discussed. But in the case of Apurva, the case of Brahman has not been discussed. Probably for that reason you have brought, is it the fact, Ishvara?
The thing is that Purvamamsakas don't consider Ishvara or something like that. Nayayikas think of Ishvara, but Nayayikas Ishvara ultimately, from when do Nayayikas conceive of Ishvara? We find that in Nyaya Kusumanjali of Udayana, the proofs of the existence of Ishvara. Regarding the propagation of the Adrishta, role of Ishvara has not been discussed in Nyaya. Nyaya's, the Vedantin's Ishvara seems to be like the original face when the reflector comes in front. It is basically Brahmarupa. It is basically unvariegated. And at the highest culmination of the Advaita theory lies the theory of acosmism, that nothing has been created, Ajativada. So when nothing has been created, all of this is illusion. So where comes the question of ethics? Where comes free will? Where comes Ishvara? Nothing. All these are delusions. Something like that, which Gaudapada explicates in his Mandukya Karika.
okay, thank you, Anupam. Well, to the previous question, let me have something like this. Well, accept that God is good, and He has given us free will. Okay, let us go on to accept this, that we have a free will. But free will does not come free. Free will does not come free. It comes with a responsibility. So who fixes this responsibility? It is Ishvara. So that's how Ishvara also comes into picture. And fixing the responsibility, Ishvara is never bad. So still having fixing the responsibility, Ishvara is no way bad, or we cannot say he's not good. So that's how being good, giving us free will, and at the same time fixing the responsibility in the entire scheme, God is no way denied of his benevolence. So that's how we can address to this situation put forth by Pramod Das sir. Well, thank you. I wanted to have a comment by Jayanti madam. Well, she is there. She is working in this area. Well, I request her, please, madam. Madam, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Anupam. I was just listening to you. I don't want to put any comment on your paper. I just wanted to know that your opinion regarding your views regarding Advaita and Visishta Advaita. Something needs to be very clear. Like when you are doing some kind of research on Advaita Vedanta or Visishta Advaita or concept of Ishwar. So first thing is that you must convince, before you convince others, the self-convincing that you should convince that there is Ishwar or there is Apurva and the Adrushta, then you can talk about that. So like these are the kind of systems which we are talking is a kind of based on the spiritual model. And it's not that easy to speak about the Brahman or the Atman which you do not have experience, but we are trying to give a kind of scientific explanation in order to convince others, which is a very difficult task. So my point, I have seen the observation that you are trying to rationalize many things through reason. You cannot prove it in Advaita nor even Visishta Advaita when it comes to. We are giving a kind of Western parameter or model to prove the existence of God. But that is not the case. What once I believe on Ishwar means for me it is there, it is working as a potentiality, it is working as a Adrishta or a Purva of Mimamsa, then there comes the theory of karma. So many things what I find that is confusion arises within the spiritual model when we speak, unless and until you experience the metaphysical truth of Brahman, and then you try to differentiate with Ishwara, because in Advaita Vedanta, Shankaracharya has not said that the world is, he simply says that world is a falsity. He never said that world is not there. Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. Jive Brahma Iva Na Paro. So there is no difference between Brahma and Jiva. But saying this, he has not said that the Iswar is not there, as you have said, pointed out very rightly, many things. But my just query is that what do you think that the difference between Saguna Brahma and Niguna Brahma, and what is the role of absolute in case of Vedanta philosophy? How do you see?
Yes, Saguna Brahman is considered to be the Kutastham. That's the original absolute, the only reality. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. It's the absolute consciousness, absolute existence, and absolute peace. And Ishvara, when we speak of Saguna Brahman, that's like the when Ishvara is considered to be the destroyer of Phala, the creator of this universe, and all good, benevolent, and all such of things. But the particularly Brahman cannot be considered as the creator, cannot be considered as the destroyer, cannot be any adjective cannot be thrown towards the Brahman, cannot be used to describe the Brahman. That's basically the concept.
But this is a Ramanu's theory is a kind of it's a Parinambad, a realistic model, and when it comes to Advaita, it is an idealistic model.
Not at all. Shankaracharya's, when he speaks about the Pratyaksha, the method of Pratyaksha by the Advaitins are very much realistic on the transactional level. When we are speaking about Brahman, okay, they go idealistic, I won't deny. But speaking on this ground of transactional reality, they are realistic. How can I perceive the laptop in front of me? My Antakarnavachina Chaitanya goes and just spreads over this place. So outer object has to be there, on which there was a veil of Ajnana. The Ajnana veil gets destroyed, and the Vastavavachinna Chaitanya and the Antakaranavachinna Chaitanya gets clubbed up. And that's how this laptop is this laptop is visible to me. Vrittitastu chidavhasa dvavopi vyapnuto ghatam tatragyano dhyanashet avhaseno ghatasputa. So the outer object has to be there. Without that, the pratyaksha prakriya of the Advaitins cannot be explained. So Advaitins cannot be directly pointed out to be idealistic.
I agree to disagree, because they say that when we talk about Advaita theory of perception, epistemology, when you bring into that the theory of perception, it is not like the perception of Nayayikas. You have to differentiate, because in case of Advaita, it is a process, it is not a reality. So Sankaracharya has to explain the world. That's why he has created a Praman Vyavastha. It is a process, not as an instrument you find in case of Nyayavasesic other systems, because this process is not a instrument. There are two things: the perception used in Nayayikas in a realistic model, and the perception which we are creating not as a reality but as a process of Brahma, part of the Brahma theory. If there is no consciousness, there is no knowledge. According to Advaita Vedanta and one school of Mimamsa, Sakhyata Pratiti Pratyaksham. If you go by Dharmaraj Adhwar Indra Vedant Parivasa, the theory of perception, which has a the one part of the theory is that Brahma, it doesn't have a neither beginning nor end. Okay, but the world which the process is applying, there is a beginning and there is a end, which you rightly pointed out. Okay, but at the same time, you must be careful about that. The Advaita theory of perception is something which is different from the Nyayavasesic or the all schools of thought. It is a process, it is not a reality. So still a kind of level of idealism is also entered into the theory of Pramanas. Yes, I agree that realistic people said that Thankar is also realist. So that is there when we explain the world. But that realism is not the realism of Ramanus. And but anyway, so I don't want to take much time, but it is a good paper, and you have gone through into the deep. My only submission is that when you entered into the, because in reason many things cannot be described, ultimately you have to have a faith, and even Ramanujarya, that bhakti and prapati, if you miss that out, then you may end up into that giving an explanation of Isvara, which the Nayayikas have done, and in Nyaya or like the Western model of Descartes, Cartesian, that to prove the existence of God. But here, if when we talk about bhakti and prapati, it is a self-surrender, and it is a kind of Kierkegaard's model of understanding that faith. It is a no reason was there. Ishwar is there, and that I have a faith, and I can prove through that Ishwar I have the potentiality. I can fight with the Jagat, and there I can transcend every all sort of limitation because there is Ishwar. So Ishwar is a Shakti for me, like Siva-tattva in Kashmir Saivism. So it is a kind of what I am trying to say, that when you work on that, you must have an experience. And if you do not have experience of that, maybe we end up with discussing this through the logic and rationality. That's my perception.
Yeah, obviously there
Yes.
is a distinction between religious God and philosophical God. Certainly.
Anyway, thank you. Now, well, we should end up here because Anupam